Hello, fine citizens of YouTube. In this video, we're going to talk about MSNBC anchor Joe Scarborough, who got himself into some trouble when he said recently, the South isn't racist. So Joe is a Florida guy. He went to school in the Deep South. He knows better. Now, I have family in Mississippi. I've been there. I lived in Florida. I lived in Richmond, Virginia. I say different. My experience was not in the Deep South, but mostly just the beginning. But like I said, I've been to Mississippi. So there's been a lot said. Now, let me tell you about my experience down south. Now, take a good look at me. Listen to my voice here. Do I sound like I was born in a foreign country? Probably not. I was not. I was born and raised in New Jersey. English is my first language. If you were to ask my Hispanic parents, does Juan speak Spanish? You know what they would say? Unless he's going to cuss somebody out or punch somebody in the face, probably not. And that's the truth. I rarely do. I understand it. I don't speak it. English is my first language. My first doctor's appointment, the nurse is asking me, "Oh, you speak English so well. Where did you learn?" I told her I was born and raised in New Jersey, and her face was like, that is racism. Whether you believe it or not, that is racism. I heard a lot of racism. Blacks shitting on whites, whites shitting on blacks, everybody shitting on Mexicans. That's racism, folks. Saying white boy this, white boy that, that's racism. Talking about black people negatively, that's racism. It's all racism, okay? There's racism up north. But Scarborough is wrong. There's no racism down south anymore. Dude, I left the south about 8 years ago because of racism, because of being treated poorly. Now, my mother, who is lighter skinned, a lot of people thought she was white. And then she shows up with me, like, this is my son. And they're like, things change. One of my aunts, who is a New York Puerto Rican, she worked somewhere and nobody knew what she was. They thought she was white. And then when she said, no, I'm a New York Puerto Rican, people's opinions changed. There's plenty of racism down south. Okay. And my experience was just in the beginning in Richmond, Virginia. It wasn't deep Mississippi, Alabama. I've been to Mississippi. When I was there, I can't say I dealt with too much of it. But Florida, sure. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in Florida. There's a lot of Cubans in Florida. There's a lot of Italians in Florida, right? So you would figure, a Puerto Rican, an Italian, Ecuadorian like myself, no big deal. But Scarborough's wrong. That's the thing with a lot of white people. They assume because it doesn't happen in front of them that it doesn't happen. I've never done that. I've never assumed that this person or that person doesn't deal with it. A prime example, when I was younger, I've never told this story publicly. I'm going to tell it. When I was in high school, some people thought I was white, and there were plenty amount of black guys that wanted to have a fight. They wanted to fight me just because I was white, allegedly. And I had to tell them, my mom is a Puerto Rican from the Bronx. And as soon as I said that, confrontation was over. They didn't want none of it. True story. Now that happened. Now that happened in the late 90s. And shit like that still happens. They think you're white when you're not. They think you're something else. You're passing. I don't try to pass. I'm not claiming to be. But back in the day, people thought I was white, is what it is. Just like people that are this or that, it's the same kind of thing. But racism down south hasn't changed, not my opinion. The New South, when I lived down south, they were really preaching the New South, but then they were always behind each other's backs. And that's the thing about the South. There's a lot of talking behind each other's backs. Now, up north it happens, but down south it happens to a level I've never seen before. That's why I left. Up north, eventually somebody's going to get in your face and tell you, I heard what you said. Down south, it's very, you just talk about them behind their back, and everybody has to be nice to each other in public. I'm from the Northeast. We don't do that. Racism is always going to be there. Down south, I'm not surprised. Now, is it up north? 100%. I'm not denying anything. Matter of fact, if you're from Boston or parts of New England, you know there's a lot of it. Down in South Jersey, the Klan is still around. Trust me, there's racism. I grew up 20 minutes from Atlantic City, 20 minutes from where I grew up, 40 minutes from Atlantic City. There is a lot of action. There's a lot of racist crap, so I believe it. But Joe, you're wrong. That's the problem. You're white. You didn't deal with a lot of it. And you probably said, well, it doesn't exist. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it don't exist, folks. And put your thoughts in the comments. You tell me. Is racism down south still a thing.